Welcome back into the Bangtan universe wormhole. This video is part of a series exploring the gorgeous but notoriously confusing Wings era. And we need to explore it because Wings is part of the BU. In fact, it tells stories about the characters that you won't find anywhere else. You might need some help to understand them, but that's why I'm here. My name is Karen, and I'm a former English teacher with specialized knowledge of art, mythology, and theology, so I can guide you through the Wings era. In this video, we'll be looking at RM's short film Reflection. You only need to know one thing before we get started: the overall storyline of the BU. If you're new to the Bangtan universe, then you need to watch this video before you try to understand Wings. From here on out, I'll assume that you are up to date on the BU, so let's get on with it. The novel Demian has a huge influence on the Wings era, and even though you don't need to read it, you do need to understand its major points. I've summarized them on this slide, so if you're brand new to the series, or if you need a refresher on the novel, just pause this video to read what I've written. Otherwise, you can skip on to the next section called The Quote. At the beginning of each short film, RM reads a quote from Demian that sets up the storyline. This quote comes from the first chapter of Demian, and it's the second part of the passage that opened Jimin's short film, Lie. There, the 10-year-old Sinclair talked about the life inside and outside of his home as two different worlds, with his family life being beautiful and perfect. The quote that opens Reflection shows how Sinclair viewed the other world, the one outside his home, and it turns out to be an exaggerated version of life as Namjoon knows it. The passage goes, "The other realm, however, overlapping half of our house, was completely different. A loud mixture of horrendous, intriguing, frightful, mysterious things, including slaughterhouses and prisons, drunkards and screeching fishwives, calving cows, horses sinking to their death, tales of robberies, murders, and suicides." Unlike Jimin, Namjoon has seen all the worst of life. Over time, his family grew poorer and poorer, partly because of his father's illness and partly because his brother refused to help. Then, when the four of them had to leave Songju and resettle in a mountain town, Namjoon worked as a delivery driver until he made a mistake that cost another driver his life. Namjoon's father encouraged him to leave the family and return to Songju, saying, "You must survive." And Namjoon did that. But he's full of self-hatred, both for abandoning his family and for accidentally causing a man's death. He doesn't feel like an adult, and he does feel trapped in poverty he could never escape. The short film opens on a railroad boxcar that's reflected in a shiny surface, and you'll see a lot of other reflections in this short film, just like we did in the HYYH era. Mirrors are always important in the BU, and the word reflection has two meanings. There's the literal meaning, which relates to mirrors, and then there's the metaphorical meaning, which is even more important for our heroes. Whenever they look into mirrors, they reflect on themselves. That is, they consider who they are and how they live. In the HYYH era, the boys always seemed happy when they looked into mirrors together because they were happy when they were together. But when they looked into mirrors alone, they hated what they saw. That theme continues in the short film Reflection, where the only line in RM's song that we actually hear in the video is, "I wish I could love myself." Namjoon's friends see him as a sort of leader, but he doesn't feel like a grown-up, and he actively resists becoming one. He's more like Peter Pan leading the Lost Boys on grand adventures. That's why he encourages Taeyoung in his graffiti habit, and even tries to make their arrests look like fun. And it's why he's such a poor mentor to Taeyoung and Jungkook. But that doesn't mean he likes being this way. Don't forget that line from the song, "I wish I could love myself." He doesn't love himself. In Begin, we saw Jungkook put his sketch of a bird in an envelope and mail it to someone. Sinclair did something similar in the novel Demian. He sent his bird sketch to Demian, hoping Demian would interpret it for him, which he did. But Jungkook sends his bird to Namjoon and gets nothing in return. Namjoon uses the sketch as inspiration for a tattoo of his own, of a different bird, something fully fledged and powerful, coasting over a rocky mountain with ease. Or at least that's how he sees it. Once you know he's not fully fledged and powerful, you begin to think those mountains are pieces of eggshell, and he's really a baby bird just like Jungkook. That's one reason for his becoming Jungkook's mentor in the Wings era. Once the tattoo is finished, Namjoon does something so weird that it took me ages to figure out. He burns the original sketch, drops it in a tumbler of alcohol, and drinks it. What the heck? Well, first it means he's internalizing the idea of the bird or person he wants to become. And second, he's making a callback to another scene from Demian. This one takes place when Sinclair is in his late teens. During a period of intense self-reflection, he painted a portrait that looked somewhat like Demian and somewhat like an unknown woman who eventually turns out to be Demian's mother. Sinclair pinned that picture to his wall so he could meditate on it. But one night he woke up to find the picture had disappeared and he'd dressed himself in his sleep. Then he remembered burning the picture and drinking it, except that he wasn't sure whether he had really burned it and drunk it or whether he'd just dreamed that. Either way, the result was the same. Sinclair rushed out of his apartment and down the street just following his instincts, and eventually they led him to the next mentor on the road to his individuation. Namjoon isn't so lucky because his goal wasn't as lofty as Sinclair's. The best way to explain Namjoon's goal is to quote an early BU theorist who called herself "My bias is quiet." You can see the address to this quote in the screen grab, and I'll drop a link to it in the description below. My bias is quiet says, his desire to be free is so overwhelming that he seeks to consume it to perhaps bring it to fruition. In the context of the MV reference, it would mean giving into temptation because it'll get you what you want, even if it'll destroy you in the process. And it makes him collapse. Like I said before, Namjoon feels like he'll be trapped in poverty all his life, but he still wants out. So when he tattoos this powerful bird on his arm and internalizes the bird from Jungkook's sketch, it's like he's trying to work some kind of spell that will free him from his current miserable life. But like My Bias is Quiet says, it's a dangerous spell that might not work and might even kill him. It does knock him out, and at the worst possible time. But before we get into that, let's pause for a few quick Easter eggs. First, the number on Namjoon's boxcar is 20219. That's the number of a bus stop in Ilsan, RM's hometown. Putting the number on this container underlines the fact that it's his character's home. And just like his life, the boxcar isn't going anywhere. Next, let's look at the tattoo he already had on his right wrist. It says B0612 plus RMS. This design first showed up in a set of concept photos for the Red Bullet tour. And here's how to interpret them. Put the letter B together with the plus sign, which is actually the letter T, and then connect B and T with the final character S to get BTS. That leaves us with 0612, which stands for June 12th, BTS's debut date, and then a two-letter abbreviation of each member's real name or stage name. In Namjoon's case, the RM stands for Rap Monster. Finally, we also saw RM tattooing himself in the MV for Danger, and you might have noticed that I've used clips from Danger in some of the other videos from the Wings series. Danger was never officially canon, but the BU production team have recycled a lot of clips and ideas from it for use in fully canon MVs. The moment Namjoon collapses, we see a quote that translates, "Who do you see in the mirror now?" This sets us up for the dream he's about to have. He's going to reflect on himself, both physically and metaphorically, and he won't like what he sees. But before his dream begins, we hear this sound. I'm sure some of you are too young to recognize it, so I'll tell you what you're hearing. If you call someone on a landline phone and they're busy talking to someone else, you get this sound, which is called a busy signal. But Namjoon isn't calling anyone. Someone is trying to call him, and he doesn't answer because he's busy, being unconscious. Now what's up with the words and colors flowing up his arm? An OG BU theorist has managed to translate some of it. On Namjoon's left arm, this person sees part of Demian's interpretation of Sinclair's bird sketch. The full quote goes, "The bird fights its way out of the egg, The egg is the world. Who would be born must first destroy a world. The bird flies to God. That God's name is Abraxas. You'll actually see that quote when we get to Seokjin's video, Awake. On Namjoon's right arm, behind the screen, was able to pick out the statement, if you hate a person, you hate something in him that is part of yourself. What isn't part of ourselves doesn't disturb us. As for me, I can tell you about the colors on his arm. According to the Wings concept book, green is the color of youth, specifically the stage of youth our heroes are in during the Wings era. Green is quickly joined by other colors as the youth's lives become more exciting. They're learning and experimenting and doing a lot of things they shouldn't, but they're also growing. By the way, we'll see a similar rush of colors in the 2 Blood, Sweat, and Tears videos when our heroes begin testing their boundaries there. When Namjoon opens his eyes, he's not returning to consciousness. He's just beginning to dream. This clip of shattered glass comes directly from Taeyoung's Stigma video, where it was followed by the white puppy running away from him because Taeyoung had just killed his father. Here, the shattered glass is followed up by Namjoon's motto, "You must survive." The fact that both videos show the same shattered glass, but with different images following, means we're supposed to connect those 2 images. When we do, we see that while Taeyoung was killing his father, Namjoon was focusing so thoroughly on his own needs that he didn't notice Taeyoung's need. We can even match up this scene from Reflection with this scene from the onstage prologue. After Taeyoung killed his father, he hid in a blind alley and tried to call Namjoon. He was desperate to reach his closest Hyung, but Namjoon was too self-involved to answer the phone. In fact, he's so self-involved that his dream is just a hall of mirrors showing him his own face over and over into infinity. But even though it disgusts him, he still tries to block out a noise from outside his dream. And he's doing it at 1 minute and 46 seconds into the video, the timestamp that marks an important moment in every short film from the Wings era. Here it tells us that Namjoon is trying to block out one of the most important phone calls of his life. But somehow he senses that Taeyoung is trying to reach him, and that's why we see the fireworks. They remind us of this scene from the end of the I Need You video, when shots of the guys having fun together were intercut with shots of Taeyoung killing his father. Finally, the ringing phone gets through to Namjoon, and he genuinely tries to answer it. And just for the record, he doesn't really use a phone booth to communicate with his friends. The BU is set in the present day when everyone uses cell phones, and the phone booth is just a vivid symbol that shows us how hard it is for Namjoon to wake up and answer the call before it stops ringing. You can see why the set designers used a phone booth to represent this struggle. The scene wouldn't be nearly as dramatic if it was just RM on the floor, acting groggy and fumbling with a cell phone. The phone booth also allows the set designers to add another layer of meaning to the scene. In the BU, sand represents both time and the beach where the 7 boys had so much fun. As for these weeds, I googled Korean beaches on a hunch and found several photos with plants just like these. So the beach references here, together with the word liar that shows up on the phone booth, emphasize just how far Namjoon has fallen in Taeyoung's opinion. And of course Namjoon's opinion of himself is just as low. It's only natural that this is the point where we finally hear the words from the song Reflection, "I wish I could love myself." By now you've probably realized that the events of Wings take place at the same time as the events of HYYH, and you also know that Namjoon is going to mentor Jungkook in the Wings era. But if you're wondering how one Hyung can mentor 2 maknaes at the same time, or how one maknae can have 2 mentors at the same time, the answer is simple. We're following 7 close friends who all interact with one another all the time, so we have room for multiple pairings. But the Wings era is about conflict and chaos. The Hyungs are pushing their closest maknaes away, or vice versa, and the maknaes are turning to other Hyungs for mentorship. So Taeyoung will turn from Namjoon to Hoseok, who's been helping him in the background, and Jungkook will turn to Namjoon. But why would he see Namjoon as a mentor? I've already said that Namjoon doesn't want to be an adult and is so focused on himself that he can't fully be there for anyone else. So why would Jungkook turn to him? Well, remember that Jungkook's symbol in Wings is a baby bird. His character is so innocent and trusting that he's almost like a child. And since their friend group tends to hang out at Namjoon's container home when they can't use the storage room, Jungkook might unconsciously assume that Namjoon is the group's leader. And Jungkook definitely does see Namjoon as an adult. A scene in Notes 1 shows what happens after Jungkook saves Yoongi from death. Jungkook gets sick, at least partly from smoke inhalation, and makes his way to Namjoon's container. Here's the scene. I looked up and found myself in front of the container. I opened the door and went inside. I lay down, curled up, and covered myself with all the clothes I could find. I felt cold and my body trembled. It was hard to pull myself together and lie still. I felt like crying, but tears wouldn't come. The scene of Yoongi standing amidst the flames kept replaying in my mind. Flames blazed up from the sheet. I couldn't think. I didn't know what to do. I wasn't a good talker. I couldn't even express my own feelings, let alone persuade someone else. Tears welled up and a cough lodged in my throat. It became even harder to speak. The only words I could utter as I jumped into the flame were, "I thought we were all going to the sea together." "What's wrong? Are you having a nightmare?" Someone shook my shoulder. I opened my eyes to find Namjoon. A sense of relief overcame me. Namjoon put his hand on my forehead and told me I had a fever. It was true. The inside of my mouth felt like it was burning up, but it was freezing cold at the same time. My head ached and my throat was sore. I could barely swallow the pills Namjoon brought me. "Go back to sleep. We'll talk later." I nodded. Then I asked him, "Will I be able to grow into an adult like you?" Ironically, Namjoon thinks back on this conversation during the group's walk to the beach cottage, a scene I've referenced in several other videos on this channel. Namjoon took a phone call that Taeyoung overheard and misinterpreted, but Namjoon didn't know that. He was looking over at Jungkook and remembering what the younger boy said to him. Looking at him now, Namjoon tells himself that he can't promise to help Jungkook, and he just hopes the future will be kinder to the manne than it is to him. Of course, Jungkook doesn't know any of this, and so he follows Namjoon up through the Wings era thinking he's following an adult. Namjoon's circle is just like his dream. Shattered glass that reminds him of how little he's grown and how little he's supported the people who count on him. When the symbol joins Jungkook's baby bird symbol, we see that Jungkook is going to help fill in the cracks of Namjoon's mirror, and Namjoon is going to help Jungkook mature a bit. But neither will be particularly good for the other. In fact, this scene from the Japanese version of Blood, Sweat, and Tears implies that Yoongi will step in again at least once to save Jungkook from himself. Nevertheless, all 7 boys do grow during the Wings era, and they come closer to individuation. And as usual, they have to help one another to reach their goals. Next up, we'll watch J-Hope's short film, Mama. And with a little help from the Bangtan Universe game, we'll see how Hosik becomes Taeyoung's mentor. And now it's your turn to tell us what you think. Please drop a comment below and tell us what you think about the video. Does my interpretation make sense, or did you have a different one? How about any questions or anything you want me to address in upcoming videos? Finally, please be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. That helps us to get noticed by the YouTube algorithm, which helps you find our latest content. Apo Bangpa!